James Ham, Kings Insider, joining us here, normally here on Wednesdays, kind enough to join us here on this Friday. We were responsible radio show host as we kind of dove into the conversation during the break, and we both like hit the pause button like, oh, there's some stuff we should be talking about on the radio with James Ham. And I think, Kenny, if I remember correctly, guys, it all started with talking about Kings fans being excited, James, and you noted, you think they got something here.
Yeah, no, I do. I think like the vibe inside the building is very different than most years coming in. There's usually a lot of talk about playoffs and snapping the streak and all that stuff. This year, it's a lot more. I mean, it's come up, but it's a lot more about culture. It's about chemistry. It's about how groups are meshing together or not meshing together. How Luke Walton is going to keep switching up his starting lineup. I think I asked him today about, how many more starting lineups do we have before you settle on something? And he said, yeah, we'll probably run one more new look in the next game. But then in the final game, that'll probably be the group we start the season with and give them some time and see how that goes. So I think that there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of depth on this team. And there's still a lot of possibilities as far as changing the roster on the fly in the coming weeks. And so, yeah, I think this is one of the more intriguing seasons. I'll put it up against the season when they really loaded up with veterans in DeMarcus's, I think it was his last season, where they brought in, they had Rondo and some other guys, and they brought in guys, just to bolster the overall look and feel of the roster. And you thought, okay, maybe they do have something this year because they've got a lot more veterans, but like this one is different. It's certainly different. And I think they're going to play a different style and people are going to like it.
So this is where I paused, James, and I was like, let me just hold on for a second, because I, much like you and much like the other fans, I'm excited about this team. Like you just talked about, I think they have a lot of depth on this team. And you mentioned, everything looks good, just kind of watching to see what happens and waiting for something to happen if it happens. Now, me and Davion, we had the discussion the other day. It's only 2 preseason games. We get that. But say the Kings start off 16-11 and Marvin
I don't know why we picked 16-11, by the way. It was just two random numbers that popped in our head.
But 16-11 and they're above 500. They're playing well. Is Marvin Bagley and Buddy Hield still thought about as 2 guys that you're still looking to move? Or do you say, hey, let's see what we got here with these guys. Let's not, they seem to be in good spirits, seems to be working, we're playing well. Mike, is there a scenario here where there isn't a move that is made?
No. Like straight up, the answer is no. And it's not because those guys are just like bad players or they're on the outside. It's very specific that what you have here. Like, that one big piece could mean the difference between fighting for like a 10, a 9, an 8, maybe a 7, and one big piece could put you at a 6. And all of a sudden you're safe from the play-in games, and not only are you good this year, but you're good for the next, 5 years maybe, where you can kind of write yourself into the playoffs and say, okay, like, how do we make this thing better and take that next step, not just the step into the playoffs, not just a step into the back end of the playoffs, but you're already at like the 4, 5, 6. Now, how do I get up to that 1, 2, 3? So I think that's where, if you're a GM and you're building a team, it can't ever be to just get in. That's been the mentality we just have to get in. Well, that doesn't work. And you end up with like the number 7, number 8, number 9 pick in every draft. And that's not going to win either. That's not going to be what changes your fortunes. So in the NBA, you either have to be bad or you got to be good. And if you have the opportunity to break the, like, sort of, you're stuck right in the middle. You're not horribly bad and you're not good. but you're stuck where you just win enough to hurt yourself all the time. If you can snap that cycle and take that next step, you have to do it. And it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what your record is, because you're talking, we haven't even got to the All-Star break. Your 9-game losing streak, which they had 2 of last year, from being 16-20 and being on the outside looking in again. So that would be my answer. Yeah, I would make the move if the move comes up, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 8 weeks into the season at the trade deadline. I make the move because it's not about today when you're a team like this. It's about, how do I get there? How do I sustain it? How do I get to a point where we could take another leap forward sometime in the distant future? And that's how you do it. You take risks.
I see you.
Ben Simmons' name popped back up in the conversation today, I think primarily because an article in The Athletic, and David Aldridge and Sam Amick kind of had a back and forth within the article about Ben Simmons and it specifically the Sacramento Kings. Do you think that do you think that's still an option? Do you think that's still something that they, if nothing else, have an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to keep your eye on it no matter what, because I don't think he's going to play there. I think he's made it very clear he's not coming back. I thought it was interesting that Aldridge said he would, that Sacramento is a place he would be willing to go, right? And so that's intriguing. Not that I thought he wouldn't come to Sacramento, but we always heard he would go to one of 3 cities in California. And, I mean, but to be honest with you, like I've said it before, Sacramento is a perfect landing spot for him. It would let him rebuild who he is as a player, let him get his confidence back, all of these things that, we all can see that have gone south, and sort of just reboot everything and start over. And this could be home. So many NBA players come to Sacramento and fall in love. Like, this is a great place to raise kids. You're so close to everything, but we always say it's also just a beautiful place to live, and it's easygoing, and there's great food. There's great restaurants. I was talking to Alvin Gentry the other day, and him and Mark Jones were going through like restaurants that they've been going to. And like, there's so many places to eat, good spots in Sacramento. This is a cool city. Maybe not if you're 20 and you're looking to go, or 21 and looking to go out to the nightclubs every night, but it is still a cool city. So I think it would be good for him. And so I think that door is going to be open until he's traded and he's not, he's no longer a Philadelphia 76er. I think that door is always going to be a possibility. Although, again, it sounds like the 76ers are still asking for just a ridiculous amount for him. And they're just not going to get it. I just don't see a way that they asked for like a bunch of pick swaps and 2 first-round picks from Portland. And I don't even know what they were asking for in addition to that, because that wasn't it. They're asking for other things as well. So
I think CJ McCollum was in there. It was a lot.
Crazy. James, this is a little tongue in cheek. I know I'm like kind of talking like a radio talking guy a little bit here, but I want to ask your opinion on it. Is there a point where officially or discreetly the league makes a phone call to Philadelphia? It's like, yo, this is great, because not only is this a bad look with Ben Simmons not being able to play, but it doesn't seem like Daryl Morey is getting the message. Like, he's still having these outrageous trade demands. And I just put it out there. If Adam Silver was like, called him, just, hey, Daryl, we're not telling you how to run your franchise, but it's getting out of control. Let's figure something out here. Is that even realistic?
In a different era, for sure, that call would have already happened. Like,
by that he means the David Stern era.
Yeah, the David Stern era. But let's go back, because this actually did happen in Philadelphia, didn't it? Where they actually helped like move someone into place and said,
"That's right. That's right." Yeah.
The process is over. It's not a good look for any of us. You're throwing games, and we're not comfortable with this anymore. And they had to bring in, what did they bring in? Brian Colangelo. They brought in someone to take over. And so, I don't think
he didn't embarrass them at all.
Yeah.
He didn't embarrass them at all.
And like, I keep looking at it like, do the 76ers think they're going to just be great without Ben Simmons? Because they're not. They're not going to be nearly as good as they were. And, you know, Joel Embiid is a ticking time bomb. He misses, 15, 20 games every year. Sometimes he misses the whole season for 2 or 3 straight. It's not like you can count on him. And I remember last season when he went out, Ben Simmons was a monster without Embiid there. And so, they're going to have to come to a realization that winning without him isn't just going to be like a guaranteed thing. You're going to have some low patches where you just don't have the manpower to do it. And I still look at the Kings roster and he fits right in. You can even see if they're going to play a lot of 3-guard sets and he's your starting power forward, or he can play some small ball center. Him and Harrison Barnes on the front line together, him and Rashawn Holmes together. I mean, there are so many variations of lineups that you can do. And if I'm Luke right now, that's what I'm looking at with my guards. I'm okay running a 5-guard rotation and eating most of the minutes at the small forward spot with this team, because I think you've got 5 very distinct guards to give you completely different things. And so that's what some of the things that intrigue me about this team.
What's interesting about that, James, KC, you talk about the Philadelphia 76ers winning without him. What if they do win without him? What does that say? And what does that do for his trade value?
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing if you stink, but it's another thing if it's you're winning without him. You literally don't need him. You're better with him gone. How can you ask for multiple first-round picks or shoot at that point? Man, you can't have Buddy. You can have Marvin and Davion Jones at this point. I feel like you put yourself, I didn't mean to shoot at Davion Jones there, right? But I feel like you're putting yourself in a position where the trade value could actually get worse.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I mean, if I'm looking at the Kings team, I almost see a 9-man rotation and 2 guys waiting to get traded. That's what it feels like. I've never walked into a season where that literally is what it feels like. And I know the market value for Buddy and Marvin is not high. I mean, I know that for sure. And I know that a lot of teams are looking at Marvin Bagley's $15 million qualifying offer and saying, nope, I'm not paying that. I'm not going to, I can't even extend the qualifying offer. And if you can't extend the qualifying offer to him, then he becomes an unrestricted free agent and he can sign with anyone. So having his rights doesn't even mean anything to you. But if he's looking at it, looking around the league and his agent's saying, hey, the best I can get you is what Hollinger said. He rates him at a 4-year, $20 million extension right now, not $20 million a year, $5 million a year for 4 years. That's what he's rating Marvin Bagley as. And your qualifying offer, it's $15 million. That's not good. So again, he'll just accept the qualifying offer. That would be the fear, and plays for one more season at $15 million. And then at the end of that, he's an unrestricted free agent again, and you have no ties to him.
So let me get this straight. So that's the fear of, anybody trading for him. Is that what the Kings are possibly staring at as well with keeping Marvin Bagley, that he doesn't sign the 4-year, $20 million contract, and then he do the qualifying offer here in 1 year, then he's unrestricted free agent? Same set of rules for them as well.
Yeah, as far as I've heard, there has not been any extension talk with Marvin Bagley at all. And so what does that mean? That means that you're going to walk into this season knowing that at the end of the year, if you want to retain his rights, you have to give him a qualifying offer, and his specific qualifying offer is $14.8 or $15 million. It's right there. That's a tremendous amount of money. And that is to retain his rights moving forward. And even still, I mean, you could work out some sort of extension instead of the qualifying offer, but just to get him to stick around, just to hold his rights, you have to extend that qualifying offer. You can remove it down the road, but he can also just go, oh, I'll sign on the dotted line and I'm going to play for the qualifying offer. And now you've locked in $15 million for the season, and that could be a lot of money. Then again, Marvin could just blow up and have a great season, and $15 million is right in line with who he and what he is. But like, I don't think the Kings, I don't think there's been any negotiation. And at this point, if you're the Kings, you got to look at it as like it's sunk. Well, first of all, it wasn't a Monty McNair's draft selection, so it's almost like a sunk cost issue. Like, and if you can trade him, you can trade him. But again, you're trading him at this point as an expiring contract more than you are as an asset that can be used. Now, Marvin could become an asset somewhere else and go on to have a great career. But for right now, it's a little bit of muddy water there where you're like, I don't really see how you can't see through it. You're like, I'm not sure how this thing is going to work out for anyone involved.
James Ham, Kings Insider, with us here on D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320. You mentioned asking Luke earlier about a potential another lineup change. Of course, the Kings play the Portland Trailblazers on Monday. Do you think he goes? This was my theory. If there's a chance to start the small ball lineup in a game, that's the one he does it in.
Yeah, it's possible, especially with Portland. You can kind of match up a small ball.
Yeah.
And like we talked to Davion today. Like, I wouldn't be totally shocked, even if it wasn't Davion, but it was, Fox, Halliburton, and Hield, like something mixing it up in a different way. Like, I could definitely see a small ball, but then it's like, what do I do at the center and power forward spot? Who complements the small ball group? Because I think that right now is one of Walton's like biggest concerns. Like he wants to run that small ball a lot. And I don't know if that means 40-50% of the time. I'm going to guess it probably means around that. And like, how do I, it's kind of like the original Batman with Michael Keaton. Like, don't mix the shampoo and the deodorant or you die. You remember when they poisoned the cosmetics. And so with the Kings,
Kenny hates the first Batman.
I don't hate it. I just don't think it's good in retrospect.
Okay,
but I get the reference.
I'll watch it.
See what I'm saying though? What you can't do is you can't have bad mixes on the court, and you're not sure if Alex Len and Rashawn Holmes can play next to each other. But if Alex Len can shoot 37.5% from three, like he did with Atlanta a couple of years ago, then you could play them together, and all of a sudden you got a guy who can roam the perimeter and defend just about anybody, and you have a big man who can defend the basket. And if I'm going to run those two with a 3-guard set, okay, now I'm getting interested. This is something I can work with. But you have to figure those things out. You've got to let them like play together, not just like for 3 minutes in the second quarter against God knows who. You need to get a look against someone else's starting group. And so I think that we could see again, I would be surprised if we see Alex Len starting at center with somebody else at the power forward and giving that look, even if it's Harrison Barnes. So
we've seen 2 preseason games at that. But James, I look at the rookie. I look at Davion Mitchell, and I say already he is as advertised. When you talk about all the expectations that seem to be heaped upon him, the thought that he was this defensive game changer and how he was able to guard and all this other stuff. I know it's just Cameron Payne, it's just Elfrid Payton, it's just Reggie Jackson, it's just Eric Bledsoe on a couple of possessions, it's just Paul George. I get it. But to me, James, Davion is as advertised. I love what I've seen so far, and I think it'll all carry over into the regular season. What do you think about Davion?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the first game he came out and we saw jitters in the first minute or two. He turned the ball over twice. And just watching him, I'll also say this, like, for as excited as I am for him on the defensive end, there are some small concerns on the offensive end. Number one, I want him on the court with either De'Aaron or with Tyrese Halliburton at all times, which should be the case either way. But I want those guys controlling the ball when he's in the game. I don't particularly love him as a playmaker this season. I think it's going to take a little while for him to sort of get his sea legs. We watched Halliburton make those incredible passes in game one where he broke down the defense and found guys in the corner. Like the Kings don't have a guy outside of him that can make those passes. And then Fox, because of the way he plays so hard, he draws and has easy kicks all over the place because, you know, defenses shrink up against him. And so he does create a lot of space for his teammates. I want to see Davion for right now as a catch and shoot 3 guy. And whether that's in the corner or it's at the elbow, both of which I've seen him shoot a ton in practice and he looks really strong, but also like every once in a while, you know, catch and shoot, catch and shoot, catch and shoot, and then just hit the gas. And when someone flies out to block your 3, beat him to the hole and go for the layup. So I would like to see a conservative, him playing more off the ball right now, especially because he's concerning so much energy on the defensive end. So as far as the offensive side, that would be my only concern. I want Halliburton handling the ball as much as possible and Fox handling the ball as much as possible. On the defensive end, you're right. It's just, and it's not just what, because I heard like Terrance Davis talk today and he said, you know, we're feeding off of it. We're feeding off of it. And I think feeding off of it is one thing, but the way that Davion plays, it's not just feeding off of it. It is, he forces people into awkward body motions that lead to lazy passes that gets his teammates wide open runaway steals because, or, you know, we've seen the double teams where he's just blotting out the sun and they're sending a big and like, it just gets chaotic. They're going to force so many turnovers because he's in the game. And he was funny today. We talked to Davion and he said, you know, like I asked him if he's a film study guy. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm not going to go out there like with a blank. I think he said a blank head, like, and not know what I'm doing. And I asked him what, like, are you ready to play against CJ and Dame? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick him up half court. I'm going to pick him up full court. I'm going to do whatever. I started. So he's like, I'm going to have to give up some things. I said, well, are you going to let him shoot 45-foot 3-pointers? And he laughed. He goes, probably not. He's like, but like playing against De'Aaron every day has really got him ready to go defend anybody. He's like, De'Aaron is so incredibly different and unique in the NBA. He's so much faster. He's so much craftier than so many other guards that just those reps are going to help, but also studying and going out there and doing what he does, playing full court, picking up guys wherever, and just causing problems. I think he's gonna find himself like earning minutes very quickly. He's gonna be a fan favorite. I think his defense, it's awkward. His defense is so much ahead of his offensive game at this point, but I still think he's serviceable and there are things he can do. It's not like, you know, Matisse Thybulle thing where the dude averages 3 points a game and people don't even have to defend him on the perimeter. It's like the old JaVale McGee where they just put JaVale McGee out of bounds until the NBA said, hey, look, everyone's got to be on the court the whole time. You can't literally just hide JaVale McGee out of bounds. That doesn't work. So, yeah, so I think he's going to be intriguing to watch his rookie season.
James, you obviously curious what you thought and perhaps even what Davion thought on De'Aaron's remarks after the Clippers game a couple of nights ago about Davion already being a top 5 on-ball defender in the league.
Yeah, so Davion had not heard those comments, and then when he was told what the comments were, he got a huge smile on his face, and he's like, you know, well, thanks, like that's high praise, but like he knows that's who he has to be, and his taste so far in the league, he's like, okay, like between Cal Classic, Summer League, which mean very little, but they do mean something. And then you start getting into actual preseason games and playing against real players. I think he already sees that, like, look, I can be that guy here too. It's not too big for me. I'm ready. I know he was asked today if he's 6'1" or 6'2", and he said he's going to go with 6'2", and I said, yeah, me too. Neither one of us are 6'2". Sorry. Like he might be taller than me, but I'm not sure by how much. And I'm not sure that he is. Like
I'll go with 6'2" for me also. Like if we're just allowed to pick, I'm gonna go 6'2" for me.
Yeah,
that's like you can hear me on it. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm 6'2" as well. No, but like, without shoes, I'm 5'11". With shoes, I'm 6 foot. Close to it, right there. And so that's what he kind of feels to me. He's right around that size. So I don't think he's going to be able to defend guys like Paul George all the time or Luka Doncic all the time, but he is going to be able to defend so many different types of guards that I think is good for the Kings, especially with the length around him.
The other thing that stuck out about that quote was I was talking to Deuce and Mo. We were talking to them about this. Is like it came from De'Aaron Fox. And you talked to De'Aaron. De'Aaron's a pretty straight shooter, and he doesn't ever really give a lot of fluff or fake praise to himself or anybody else. And like, not just saying he's a good defender, but he's like, no, he's top 5 on ball defender. That's what added a little more weight to that statement, who it came from, and for him being just as specific as he was about Davion.
Yeah, I'll say this too. Just like Davion is excited because he's got to play against De'Aaron Fox every day of practice. It's teaching him how quick guards are, how NBA guards are so much longer than you think. I mean, De'Aaron Fox has huge wingspan, so you have to learn how to defend each of these guys individually. Some guys like Dame can pull up from anywhere on the court, and you've got to be ready for that. But they're also so crafty, and they pick up fouls on you. So I think it's a really good thing for him to go against, and Halliburton, and Terrance Davis, and even Buddy Hield, going against each one of these guys. I think that's one of the unique things about this team. They got 5 guys. All 5 are completely different. You have your speedster. You have your utility knife in Halliburton. You've got your 3-point specialist in Buddy Hield. You've got your explosive, almost plays angry Terrance Davis, which they're calling the microwave at this point.
I call him El Caballo Loco. Crazy.
Yeah, and then you have Davion. So they're going up against each other, but also like De'Aaron Fox took a huge leap last year. We all want to see if he can take another leap. How do you get a guy to take another leap who's already up to over 25 points a game, 7 assists a game? Well, how about you stick a crazy defender on him every day in practice and say, all right, get better now. Now show me you can get better again against that guy. And when we go release you into the wild, that is the 82 game schedule. Now, what are you going to do? Like, there's no one else who defends like that. There might be Pat Bev who defends like that, but outside of that, and Pat Bev, I don't think is as quick as Davion. Like, now that should elevate De'Aaron Fox to another level. It should give him another bump that he didn't have before. And so, again, I think drafting Davion was an intriguing move at the time. But the way it's going to play out, number one, you have an elite perimeter defender. Number two, he's making everyone better with his style of play. Number three, he's making everyone better because they have to go against him all the time in practice and deal with that dog mentality, the guy that won't go away. And he's doing that at Kings practice as well. It's not an act that you see in a game. That's who he is.
James, you mentioned the microwave. You mentioned Terrance Davis a minute ago. I thought he was really effective in some probably inconsequential minutes against the Clippers. Will that be his role on the team? Like, I've been trying to figure out, like, where is he going to fit in with the rest of the guards there in the lineup?
Yeah, I think it's still TBD, right? Because we don't know what the roster is going to fully look like, 8 weeks into the season. Like, we think we know what it's going to look like right now, but it can change quickly. Which means his role could change dramatically. He could go from, a guy who's going to fight for like 16 minutes a game to a guy who is going to play 24 minutes a game very quickly. And what I like about Terrance is that when he's hot, like, you can't stop him. Now, it's a problem because in the first game, he was ice cold and it was like, eesh.
Stop him from shooting.
Yeah, and we saw that in the first so he came to Sacramento. He had a really big game. We talked about his off the court things, and then he had a stretch where it felt like he was affected by stuff. And he had a really tough stretch where if he's not hitting shots, he becomes he's a tough player to play. And then when he got a bigger role, especially when Halliburton and Fox started getting, Halliburton had the knee issue and Fox got COVID late in the season, we saw his game just skyrocket. I think he can be somewhere in between, but I think he's a guy that can come off your bench and average 12 points a game without any problems. I liken him to Bobby Jackson, that type of role with this team. And, again, remember, he's only in his 3rd season, so he's going to need to grow into who he is and what he is. But I like his mentality. His mentality is like, if that's who you want me to be, if you want me to be Vinnie Johnson, number one, I'll go type Vinnie Johnson into YouTube and figure out who that is, which is what he did, because he didn't know who Vinnie Johnson was. But then secondly, I'm going to look around and say, okay, who else is like that? Is it, Jamal Crawford? Is it a Bobby Jackson? Get advice from Bobby while he's there. Is it, what's his name? Williams, Lou Williams.
Oh, yeah,
like how do you find out how to be that guy, how to be someone who's so impactful and it doesn't matter how many minutes you play. And I think Terrance is kind of like, he's looking for it. He's like, that sounds cool to me. Let me figure out how to be that. And that's a good thing that you have a young player who's already considering the fact that maybe he is a Super Six going forward.
Oh boy. Deep sigh. This usually is followed by something very dramatic.
Buddy Hield. His first 2 preseason games, not the most efficient. Now, we've had discussions about Buddy Hield all week long. Ironically enough, James, I don't have a problem. Obviously, I want him to make more shots, but in the role that he's in, I don't really have a problem with him coming in and chucking up shots. I feel like that's his job. You're the scorer of the second unit. Go shoot your shots. Like, I don't have a problem with it. And I feel like it's set up now where, as your starting shooting guard, that's a problem that he's going 4 of 13 and shooting 12 3-pointers or whatever it is. Coming off the bench as your 6th man, if it's 4 of 13 that night, yeah, it's not ideal, but we can handle it because we have other scores around her. That 4 of 13 might be a 9 of 13 one night, so we want to have him keep shooting. What's your outlook on Buddy Hield right now as things stands and what his role looks to be going forward with this team?
Yeah, I mean, his role is a floor spacer, and I'll when it comes to Buddy, I'll say one word that I think means everything, and the word is incentives. His contract is incentive laden, and he knows the numbers. He knows exactly what it's going to take to get him his money, and he is going to look for those numbers. And so if he is inefficient and his 3-point percentage is below 40% or 41 or 42, I could see a point where he reduces the number of threes in order to up his percentage. And, I think we talked about this, he had a clause in his contract that he shot 85% from the free throw line, that he got, I think it was $500K. It was mixed with another stat. He had to do 2 things. One of the things was no problem. The 85% should have been no problem. The last game of the season, he hadn't shot a free throw for, I think it was 4 or 5 games. We talked about this. And then he got fouled shooting a 3, and he bricked the first 3, and he dropped below 85% from the line. And then even though he hit the second 2, it wasn't enough to push him back up over 85%. So I'm not sure if he got his incentive money, but just so you know, he knows where those are. And definitely so. If you're going to sign a contract that says, hey, I've got to play 72 games, then you got to play 72. And even if there's only 72 in a season, you got to play it out. You got to be there every game. And so, look, he's a super hard worker. He's a super cheerful guy. He's not a bad guy to have around unless he becomes a real distraction. And so far, everyone there has said, look, he's here. He's bought in. He's ready. He's come to the conclusion, whatever happens, he knows that he was almost traded to the Lakers and it didn't work out, and that it was not the Kings' fault that it didn't work out. They tried to get him to a perfect situation. It didn't happen. And so from here on out, it's look, if this is where I'm at, this is where I'm at, and I've got to go out and be successful. And I think he's got 3 more years left on his deal. Mm-hmm. So this could be a situation.
360.
They can't find a spot for him to go. And so you got to play it out.
I'm just envisioning he's like a junkie. Like he knows he has to hit it like a certain number. Like in his mind, he's thinking, I've got this number of threes that I got to make, this number of threes I got to take to get there. But then he misses a couple, and then he starts chasing it. Well, I got to get on track. Like I got to get going. I got to get going. And all of a sudden, before you know it, he's 3 of 13.
Yeah.
We saw that twice.
Well, I mean, and the problem that I saw that one game was he kept trying to get back to the free throw line. Well, like you spent, I think we looked like 33 games this last season.
Right. Yeah.
You didn't go to the free throw line at all. When you need to get to the free throw line, if you don't know how to get there, that's even more awkward because then you're throwing yourself into people and you're doing the flinging the ball up. And, like,
hey, you're doing the audible foul. Hey.
Yeah, it goes sideways fast. And so, like, look, I again, there are plenty of things that each of these players can get better at. There are plenty of things I can get better at, whether it's on the radio or writing. You got to keep working and keep getting better. And I'm sure Buddy will, because he is like a super hard worker. And I don't mean to bash on him or like have fun.
No, we like Buddy, man.
Yeah,
and I admire the fact that he was in the game for 3 minutes and had already taken 4 threes. Like, I love that. Like, I just admire that. And I admire you, James. You're the absolute best. Thanks for hanging out with us a bit on this Friday. Totally unscheduled. James hit us. I assume you were at practice or wrapping up practice and said, hey, I'm available if you want to talk. And here James is. We do want to mention this as we're leaving. We were keeping our eyes on it, and it's a pretty big deal. Seahawks are bracing for Russell Wilson to miss at least a month, potentially 6 to 8 weeks. This is a dude who has not missed a football game, and now the Seattle Seahawks could be without him from 6 to 8 weeks. That is an absolutely massive story developing in the NFC West. Don't want to see that. I'm a Russell Wilson guy, man. Don't want to do that.
I believe they call that, just so you know, they call it mallet finger, and it's when you snap the ligament in the tip of the finger, and then it gets stuck like that. My wife had that. She was cleaning up after one of the dogs. I'm like,
oh dear!
Took a bad step with her finger, and it popped it.
Oh,
and I thought it was dislocated, and was like, well, just pop it back in. Ooh. And it wasn't. And it's called a mallet finger, where just the tip of your finger gets caught in a bent way. And I believe that's what happened to him. And it was, I think, 6 weeks and a little finger cast that held her finger back, trying to get it back in place. And it painful for months later.
Well. On that note, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll see you Monday.
Go Giants.